Hi, this is Addie, and welcome to the next episode of Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. I brought my special mug today, Take Me to the Ocean, because we have two of our favorite guests back to let us know what their big adventure was, how it went, and we are looking forward to a fun conversation.
Hi, it's Jamie, and welcome to this episode of Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. We're so glad that you're here today. And this time we've got a revisit by some of our very favorite guests, and they're going to tell you all about their grand adventure. But today we have Pfetzer and Jarrod Slindee, and of course my buddy Addie. Hi, Addie. How have you been?
Good. Really good. Yeah.
We had a meeting together yesterday, and then we had a meeting together on Tuesday.
The day before. So yeah, I know.
We are,
and I was going to tell you yesterday when we were leaving, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of meetings, but it's good to be back in the studio. We're trying to get back to doing our regular filming schedule. And as I said, this is a revisit from some of our favorite guests. And if you remember from a previous episode, these two guys took on an adventure of rowing across the ocean, and they were raising money, and we had the Risen Warrior coffee people on one of our episodes, so shout out to them. So you guys are back.
We are.
Completed the mission.
In one piece. So I was fortunate enough to attend one of the welcome home events that you all had, and Addie was there as well, and we got to hear some of your stories. But can you just tell our audience, both our listening audience and our Facebook audience, when you left and where you left from, and then when you landed and where you landed?
Yeah, so we flew to La Gomera in the Canary Islands. We were there actually a couple weeks prior to the race start, but the race start was December 12th. We left about 12:25 in the afternoon. It's a notable time because that's the time we reference the whole every day on our 24-hour periods and how many days we were actually out there. So we left La Gomera December 12th, and then we arrived in Antigua on February 2nd, 2023. And so our total time was 51 days, 17 hours, and 18 minutes.
Okay,
so,
and how many seconds?
I don't know. Probably
between 0 and 60.
Yeah.
0 and 60? Oh, okay.
Guessing?
So when the last time you were on our podcast, you were still in the process of getting the boat things situated, training, fundraising. So you're still, obviously you don't have the boat anymore, but the fundraising, what you did it for, the cause is still there,
right.
Correct?
Correct.
So
why don't we talk about that a little bit? Like what was the cause,
right.
And what is your organization that you guys do this for?
Sure. So this was through Guardian Initiatives, which is a nonprofit based here in Farmington. It's a nonprofit. Jarrod and I started a 501c3 about 4 years ago, going on over 4 years ago now. And so our whole goal with the row was to raise awareness for first responder mental wellness and suicide prevention, and for our Four Corners area. So, and first responders, Jarrod and I are both law enforcement. We're doing for all first responders: fire, police, EMS, dispatch, even corrections. So, with Guardian, we have a goal of bringing in awareness, helping to bring in training for first responders on the subject and others, helping with treatment and sharing resources. And our awareness campaign was the row, to get out there and do something big with a splash, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended.
Well, it was big, and I'm sure there was more than one splash.
Wow.
So because the rowing is over and the race is over, but the mission goes on, and I think that's important because you do want to continue to be able to raise money and get out and do these presentations. Have you done any school presentations yet to the schools?
Not yet. I think we've got a couple planned. When we got back to reality here in the U.S., we were just inundated with all these requests to speak and do presentations, which is great. And I think we had at the time 14 that we were scheduled to do, and so I think there's one or two schools that we have a presentation for. So that'll be exciting to share it with the kids. And our understanding is Hills Church, and then where my boy goes to school at Ladera, they were tracking us across the ocean, so that was pretty cool. So. But yeah, just super busy with presentations and all that.
Well, my husband was tracking you every morning over coffee. He would
too.
say,
They haven't gone anywhere. They didn't go anywhere.
It's funny. He said, they've gone this many nautical miles. They have this many nautical miles to go every single day. So he was keeping me up on the progress. So
he and I joked that we should have been texting each other because I think he and I were much more involved in,
I just
watching
figured you
that.
guys were going to tell me. So I knew somebody was going to inform me.
Yeah.
But so I want to get to, and I'm sure Addie does too, I really want you guys to do most of the talking today.
Yeah.
I biggest challenge, well, there was probably more than one. In what time of the period you were on the ocean did you really begin to feel like, or was there a time when you thought, I don't know if we were going to be able to do this or
finish or like of course.
It's a great question. I don't think there was ever a time. I will talk about one maybe instance, but not really a time that we thought like physically, like, oh, we're not going to be able to do this. I've mentioned for me, probably one of the only time it was really scary was when we were first leaving and watching of course my wife's on the pier and I'm watching her and boats going away, and it's like, I hope we know what we're getting into. I hope what we think we're getting into is what we thought we were going to get into.
Right.
What we were about to get into is what we thought we were getting into. So that fear of the unknown there, but never physically a time for me, and I don't think either Jarrod or Mike either that we thought we couldn't do this. There was a scary time. There was a couple to be expected equipment issues we would have along the way, and one of them was our seat bearings. And the seats on the boat move, and that's where we get our power to row.
like a rowing machine.
Like a rowing machine. That's where your power comes from, your legs. You can't just row it with your arms.
Right.
And the seat bearings, like day 3, day 4, and we noticed 2 of them went kaput, and that is scary because like we have enough spares for 1 full seat.
Okay.
Every seat took 16 bearings, and
Wow.
we had 16 extra bearings. And so the thought of if these bearings, whether they were bad or what, from the get-go, if they all go out, I mean, if we're already replacing 2 at day 3 or 4, how are we gonna get this boat? And that's a fear. Like, I don't know how we could get that boat through without seats moving back and forth. So in my mind, I'm devising a plan of what we can do to fix that, for a solution for that. And it wouldn't have been great, but it may have worked. Luckily, though, we didn't need to.
A paper clip and some tape. And
We were able to kind of baby the bearings, grease and oil them, and we were able to keep them going for the whole time. I think we ended up only needing to replace a couple more the entire trip. So,
and in his mind, like you said, he's trying to formulate a plan on how to fix this stuff. In my mind, I'm saying, gosh, I hope Mark has a plan to fix this, because he's the mechanics guy, and so please get us to the other side.
Well, and you had to rely on just what you had on the boat, and you had to rely on your own creativity and ingenuity in that kind of situation.
And each other.
And each other.
right.
Like that's huge to be able to trust. There's 3 of you on this boat, and to trust each other too, out there in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Yep.
So those were some of the challenges. So what about during this time were times of just ultimate, like, this is amazing? And I'm sure there were those times too, or I hope so anyway.
Yeah. There's, of course, the wildlife is really cool. We saw a lot of whales and dolphins and other animals and wildlife. So that was, for me, that was pretty cool to see whales in their own element, and I don't think you can obviously replicate that anywhere else. And so I'm pretty fortunate to have experienced that. I also thought the sunrises and sunsets were really beautiful. Got the opportunity to be able to row and watch the sunrise, just being by yourself out on the oars, and just kind of being at one with yourself. And I thought that was pretty cool. We got into a lot of deep conversations. That's a memory of mine. I think that was a lot of fun. I think we solved the world's problems and really, in our minds, solved the world's problems. But getting to know each other, and on a deeper level which was fun and exciting. And I think there's things I'm missing too. Mark talks about it, like, out there you're only thinking of the misery, but when you get home the misery's going to wear off, and you're going to start thinking of the good stuff. And I am in that phase now where I'm thinking, even at lunch day, we're talking about, well, I was thinking about misery today, but there are things that I'm thinking of, like, gosh, that was such a great time, and some of those memories are coming back now. It's kind of fun to relive it a little bit. So,
what about for you?
You know, a lot of the same. The wildlife is really, really neat to see. I really enjoyed the night shifts. Not that, you know, you don't enjoy rowing with your partners, but the night shifts when you are rowing by yourself. Now, there was a lot of night shifts that I was really frustrated because you couldn't get rowing good or whatever. The weather just wasn't good. But there's a lot of times it was just really peaceful, you know, listening to books or music or nothing at all, just listening to the waves. I know one time I quit rowing for a minute and just took a video, and you can't see anything, just to hear the water. You know, it's pretty neat hearing the water. So that's really neat, having that time.
And I know you probably couldn't do a lot of like journaling on board because you're busy rowing. I mean, you might be able to film each other, but have you come back and done some of that, written some of this down? Because you think you're going to remember these things always, and have you done any sort of...
No, I haven't. I mean, there was some thoughts I had on the boat that I would put in my phone. We had our phones, you know, they didn't work other than music and photos, right? That's what we had them for, but they didn't work as phones. But we had our phones. So there's, you know, notes I would put in my phones, things I was thinking about then. And but no, haven't done anything since on some of the, you know, the memories. I think that's part of what we're hoping to as we put together presentations to bring around to be able to do that. So
yeah, I remember you talked to us a little bit at the welcome dinner about some of the thoughts that you had and in your faith and how you've had a little bit of time home now. How have those conversations been with you and your higher power?
Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about, you know, my whole time on the row, I kept thinking to myself, like, how am I gonna use this also to glorify God? I mean, we're doing it to raise awareness of first responder mental wellness. To me, you know, the knowing, you know, what's helped me in my career has been my faith. But, you know, what can I do to glorify God? And, you know, putting together some presentations on that, which will be I'm excited to share, but kind of going along the lines of our navigational stuff and what we call our course over ground. And, you know, as we're traveling along on the boat, and, you know, we have a waypoint, we're trying to get to that waypoint where, you know, we aim, you know, the compass and set our auto helm, but then something's affecting us. Water, you know, the waves, the wind, the currents are affecting us, pushing us off course, and just got me thinking, you know, what are the things in our lives that push us off course spiritually and, you know, push us off course from glorifying God, and that's really, you know, kind of the message I want to get through. And so I'm really excited about that. I had a lot of thoughts about that on the boat. So.
And again, for our listening audience and our Facebook audience, we are in Farmington, New Mexico, and the Four Corners, so we're pretty landlocked. I mean, not pretty. We are totally landlocked.
So we're high desert.
Yes, high desert. And Mark and Jarrod took part in this race, and so I want to go just a little bit into the race, because this isn't just it was 3 of you on the boat rowing, but you just didn't go off and do this on your own. This was part of an organization, part of a race. And how long has this race been going on? How many years has it been doing?
I'm not even sure. At least how many
25
years?
total,
25?
I think but 10 years with this organization.
Wow. I can't believe people have been doing this for 25 years. My goodness. So it's a race, it's an organization. How many teams participated this year?
Yeah, this year there was 43 total teams and 127 rowers from all over the globe.
Okay.
And as we talk right now, there's three solos still out there rowing.
I was going to ask you, there's some still out there, aren't there?
Yeah, those poor folks.
Oh, my goodness.
So yeah, they're still out there, but yeah, it was fun to meet all these people from everywhere, and just to hear their stories, what their charities are, what they're rowing for, and what brought them to the start line, and sharing our story as well. And it was fun to meet all the different teams. And there was a couple British teams that were rowing for the same, not the same charity, but for the same reason, same cause, for first responder mental health in their country, which was really cool to connect with them and hear about the same struggles that they have in their country. So that was good.
Is anybody checking on the solo rollers? Like, do they
Yeah.
like sail by and how you doing?
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
Do you
I saw
need
because I'm
anything?
following them on Instagram and the Atlantic campaigns, and they were saying that I think that they went and did a food drop, and because they were getting down to where they needed some
Sure.
assistance, and so that was the last thing that I saw was that
Yeah.
a food drop was had.
Yeah, every day we had to have our phone on from 12 to 2, where the race organizers would call. They would call sporadically every 3 or 4 days to check in on us, get an update on how we're doing. And those were good phone calls. You're kind of anticipating that call and to let them know how you're doing and them give us a weather update and whatever. But yeah, so there's the solos are still being checked on, and I think this would be the first year that they've actually had to give them food, to give
Okay.
rowers food, I believe.
Okay.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, so I think this year is the longest that solo rowers will be out there, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's
So-
wild. Yeah, and I saw too, there was a young girl, this I can't even imagine, but 23 years old, that did it on her own and came in, did the whole thing, came in on her own, and she's a scientist or something. And I'm just like, wow, wow.
It's a special toughness to me. I mean,
Yeah.
the team that won it did it in 31 days, and that's a special toughness to endure that physical. I mean, we were messing around one day trying to pull, going as fast as what they probably did the entire time, and it's like, oh goodness, I wouldn't want to row like this for 30-something days. So that's a special toughness. But to be the solo rowers, and then the solo rowers still out there now, going on
The isolation.
90 or 100 days,
And then you come back into civilization and people. I mean, I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that's a big shift then. That's going to be a real adjustment for them
think
when
so.
they come back into the reality
The
and
wild.
the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit before we got on camera about how it felt getting off the boat after that many days and trying to use your legs again, and sea legs being a real thing, and that's I just
Yeah.
being on the boat at the lake for a few hours is a little bit wobbly when you come back, but man,
Yeah, it's
51 days.
It's a struggle, I think. Mark got off the boat and said, "God, I feel like a 2-0," and just you really just cannot walk straight, and so that wears off as the days pass on. But even I could walk pretty straight within 3 or 4 days. But I mean, even at the office, I'm still not now, but when we got back, and I could run into walls still, and so. But it's a different feeling. It's just. And then it was actually kind of funny. We'd go down the next day to watch another team arrive, and the same thing. They're all over the place. They look like they're hammered. So, it just kind of brings a smile to your face. So, it's
You
kind
just mentioned going into the office, and we talked about what you all were rowing for. So, because we have people listening from all over, that I think it's so important just to go over the reasons. What's happening in that world of first responder, mental health, higher suicide rates. You have an audience here, so
Sure.
let's use the rest of the
No,
time to
it's-
talk about some of what you want to share in regard to that.
Yeah, most people are shocked when they do hear about first responders and the number of suicides experienced by first responders. That more police and firemen lose their life by suicide every year than by the normal risks of the job. Outside of COVID, it's it's often the highest cause of death amongst them, and truly is, because the data collected on line of duty deaths, what we normally associate with the dangers of shootings or car wrecks, something like that data is very well maintained, whereas the data on suicides is not. So they only anticipate that to be about 60% accurate. So when you see numbers of 228 law enforcement officers died by suicide, that's just 228 reported.
Right.
And so it's probably close to double that. And we don't say that every first responder is going to be suicidal, but we do recognize that every first responder is going to go through some hard time, going to experience some mental trauma at some point. Some may already have a system in place, whether through their faith, through their family, through their own just
Their own practices.
Yeah, their own practices that allows them to handle that and process that. But a lot don't. And we bring in a lot of young people into the profession. You only have to be 21 to be in law enforcement. I think it's probably the same for fire or close to it. And so there's a lot of recognition that needs to be had amongst first responders themselves on, hey, these are things you can experience. These are normal responses. You know, when you start feeling this way, this is a normal response, but it's not necessarily the response you should be satisfied with. You know, we need to go out and get help. And one of the big problems is, oftentimes in our professions, you get a lot of people who are type A personalities. You know, we're first responders, fire, police. We're called when there's a problem, right? We're very good at fixing other people's problems. We're very bad at fixing our own problems because we don't have a problem. Everyone else has a problem, you know, and so a lot of the intricacies of the personalities and that culture, if you will, the first responder culture, that prohibits them from seeking help, from going out to seek help. And there's also a stigma that's been around for many, many years within the profession of, this is what you signed up for, suck it up, you know, get over it. Now, I will say we are doing much better. You know, the agencies, many agencies have now peer support programs and are talking about it, giving trainings, and that's great. And that's what we want to continue to help. We want to continue to help bring in training to develop those peer support programs or support them. Training for clinicians, you know, we talked about that culture. We thought early on in this endeavor that money for, like, to get treatment would be the big thing we were going to try to raise money for, try to help with. And we learned early on it's not that. It's having people who know how to treat first responders, who are culturally competent, who understand, like, why is he wearing a gun? You know, why you know, or why do they act like this? Why, you know, the shift work, whatever it may be, all the stuff, you know, becoming callous to things over time. And so bringing in training for clinicians on understanding the culture, and bringing in training for families and seminars or whatever for families on how to, because families have to understand it too. You know, why doesn't my spouse want to talk about their job?
All the traumatic things that they probably saw that day.
They don't necessarily want to bring it home. Or why don't they want to make a decision? Well, they've been making decisions all day. And, you know, they just shut down. And so that communication problem, and so for families to understand, you know, how do we handle this as a children, as a spouse, whoever, because truly it is a great career, it is a great job. You're out there helping people. It's a needed career, you know, profession. But if you don't know how to handle it, there can be stressors that can cause you to, you know, get out of it prematurely. And by all means, I'd rather somebody just step out and go find another job than take their life. But unfortunately, that happens.
So you mentioned clinicians. Are the clinicians that are typically involved in this, are they within the department, or are they all outside of the department that are you know, first responders are referred to them if there's an incident? Or is it a combination?
Some of your larger agencies, I think, have embedded clinicians in-house. You know, we were up visiting, I think, Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm sure lots in between, you know, have clinicians embedded inside that officers can deal with. I think most of the law enforcement world out there, and probably fire as well, it is, you know, go to an outside source and, you know, some referral to somebody. So knowing that, hey, this person I'm going to go to knows this culture, is familiar with the service, you know, with what we do, it was very helpful.
And so many communities don't have enough mental health clinicians or professionals. And I'm thinking these smaller communities really don't, and they still have need, but I know that there is a lack of you know, professionals, counselors, and that kind of thing. So it must be an ongoing challenge for you know, across the board, not just first responders, but
I would agree, and I can't imagine. I mean, that's a whole nother challenge. Luckily nowadays with, you know, telehealth type stuff, you know, that some of that can be alleviated,
more availability.
And you mentioned 21 years old to get into the department or to apply and start the process. And so, do you think now in this day that with those young 21-year-olds, they're having these conversations about the mental health piece of it, so that they're aware of that side of it, the stress that can?
I mean, I think it's being spoken about more often now. When I started, you didn't talk about it at all, and now it's kind of it's not as voodoo, you know, and so it's being talked about more. And even I think since we've started this, and I'm not saying we're the sole cause of it, but it's people freely talk about it now, and I feel like that there was a distinct change somewhere. But Yeah, I think it's talked about more. We still need. I think there's a lot more training that needs to be brought in. I think we're just scratching the surface of what's really possible and what we can actually accomplish. So.
And at our Women's Summit 2 years ago, our Professional Women's Summit, we had Chief Steve Hebby, who's the police chief here in Farmington, come in and talk about specifically the police department here and making that sort of culture of, what was I trying to say, for women, trying to recruit women or encourage women to look at law enforcement as a career. And so I know that also in the sheriff's department, you've been at a number of events that I've been at, and it's about recruiting, letting people know about the sheriff's department.
Correct.
But it's certainly an opportunity for both. Yes, men, women. You're recruiting women for the sheriff's department as well.
Very much so, yes.
Okay.
Men,
yeah.
women, and 21 years and up.
Okay.
We would love to have you come
what's
join
the
our
cutoff?
ranks.
Yeah, what's the cutoff? I
cutoff.
can totally
No
see
cutoff.
Addie doing this.
As long as I don't have to hold or shoot a gun because I have zero skills with it.
Okay.
Could be a problem.
Could be a problem.
If I can hit you with it, we're good.
Chuck it at him.
Yeah, I'm really good at holding the wrong end and then clocking.
So
I
on
can
the
do that.
lighter side, since we talked a little bit about mental health, so tell us some of the funny things that happened. What are some? There must have been some funny things.
Yeah,
that
every day there was something. A couple things that stick out in my mind. You'd probably be mad for telling the story, but Mike comes out of the cabin and he's got a bunch of crumbs on his back, and it's like, because he's eating in the cab, you're tired, you're gonna make a mess, but he's got a ton of crumbs on his back, and he's in front of me rowing. I'm just looking at the crumbs. I'm like, I'm not gonna tell him. But also, like, I remember coming out of the cabin one time, and there's like a smashed M&M in the middle of the mattress, and I was like, Mike, you got an M&M, it's smashed right in the middle. He's like, oh, I was looking for that. And I was like, it's in the middle. How did you miss it? And I think we let the crumbs go for a while because you said you seen them and didn't say anything as well. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah, there was a bunch of different stuff. I remember there was a night of a sailboat that was approaching us. We were on a collision course, if you will. Our systems tell us, if we're gonna be on a collision course. And there was a sailboat, and we tried making contact with them, but they never responded to us on the VHF radio. And calling out, nothing. And I remember Mike saying, "Well, gosh, we should have left a note on the kitchen table on the sailboat saying, thanks for the sugar. Sorry we missed you." And it's just there's a lot of different little stuff.
Jarrod got in a fight with a bird.
Oh,
We
really?
were about a day or so out, and a bird came by the cabin, and then it's nighttime, and it's flying all around his head, and he's standing up. We're trying to row, and he's standing up, shooing this bird off, and then shining a spotlight on. Total harassment of wildlife. But
What was the
That's
closest
funny.
a whale got to the boat?
It was close. It was very close. The guys had to lift the oars out of the water to keep from hitting the whale. And of course, that's the one thing.
so
I didn't get
cool.
that on camera, but
Yeah.
nobody believes us except for the other two. But that is just crazy.
and we had marlin right next to the boat.
Oh, wow.
Which there were always our concern and a risk of
being penetrated,
piercing the boat. So they were right next to the
That's the
boat.
word I was looking for.
What did you eat?
We had a lot of food, the majority of it backpacking type food, freeze dried food. So
Obviously M&Ms.
So we each had either 3 of those dehydrated meals or 4 per day. Not that we ate those, but that's how many we had. And then we had every day we had what we call a snack bag. Where anything you wanted, that we brought from home in pre-plans, like M&Ms or cookies or beef jerky, nuts, anything like that. And so we had, I think I ate 2 of those dehydrated meals per day and a snack bag per day.
You probably couldn't actually consume enough calories for the calories you're
for what
burning,
you were doing.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like-
We all lost weight.
Yeah.
And so, and I feel like we were all eating, at a certain point, we're all eating a lot of food, but you're still burning so much.
Yeah, burning so many calories. So as we kind of wrap up, I know we're getting to the end. Addie, did you have any other questions? I had one, but go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment, and I encourage people to go to your website or go to your Facebook page and look at the video of coming in, because that is just like, to me, every time I think about that and seeing you guys holding the flares and just standing so accomplished, like that was like so big. And I made sure like to time myself so I could see it happening, because I knew that they were going to show the videos and everything. So I think that that's so cool, and I think that you guys should like always go back to that when you feel a moment of weakness and look at how just accomplished your faces looked and how happy you guys looked. If you feel like I can't maybe get through something, look at that with those flares, because it's just, I even take inspiration from it. It's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm going to give myself just a little pat on the back because I introduced you guys to the Zeodrome guys over at Artifacts one day.
Yes.
So you were in there having coffee. I happened to be there, and they walked in for something, and I introduced you all. And so they filmed quite a lot of this. They actually went to England, correct, and did some footage, and they've got a video out now, correct?
They went to the Canary Islands. They came to Antigua. They've been with us, everywhere.
Which is amazing to get that kind of footage and coverage of this.
It's really neat, So, and documenting the whole thing has been really neat.
Yeah, that was cool. I felt really good when that happened, and then they all got to follow along and do all the filming.
Serendipitous,
Very cool.
And that's what's great about this community is it's big, but it's small enough where you can really make those connections, and everybody's helping everybody, and that's what's great about this community and the chamber and how active the chamber is. So.
Right. Well, I'm hoping that you all will be in our Christmas parade in the boat this year with just being home. You don't have the boat anymore.
No.
Where is the boat?
Well, it's in transit back to the United States right now from Antigua, but we may have it sold.
Okay, so the boat.
That's our goal, was to sell it.
So can we make a little rowboat?
Sure.
You can pull it like a little cardboard rowboat, and you guys can. It'd be fun we'll do a float. It would be fun.
Yes.
And I do have to say that the sheriff's department did a great float for our
they
parade last
they
year.
did
They
did amazing.
and the
Flyover,
whole bit. It was
yeah.
really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
But
because you guys were already gone. You missed it.
But in all seriousness, I think the community, as many welcome home parades and acknowledgement that we can give you, because this was a big deal,
huge.
and you were doing it for the right reasons. But you were away from your family. You have small children. You guys, that's a lot, and
not just
you.
in those days. It was all of the years leading up to it that
Correct.
took time to prep and be ready to do this.
Thank you. And we were honored. I mean, to represent our community, to represent our professions and our families. It was an honor.
And you are both first responders. As we mentioned, you both work for the sheriff's department, so thank you.
Yes,
I think
thank you guys.
It is a job that takes a special type of person, and we appreciate you, and our community should as well. And real quick, just like, what's next? Anything? Like, just chilling? What are you doing now?
Half marathon later this year.
Okay. Half marathon.
School.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about
Whatever my wife says, we're gonna do.
I think there's other things. He may not admit it, but there are other things that we've talked about. They are fairly extreme. I don't think it'll top the row, but there are other things that we've talked about. We'll see how that comes to fruition. But
Maybe the Iditarod or something like that.
Something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Might travel for that.
Yeah. But we do know it's not going to be 51 days, 17 hours, and 18 minutes for us to do it. So.
Well, thank you, and thank you to our audience. And we will be back in another couple weeks with a new episode of Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. Bye.